My new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice, is now out and available for you to read and purchase. You can check out our website, willowhealing.org, to find a link, or you can find it on Amazon. We look forward to getting your feedback, and if you love it, please leave a review and share with your friends. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine Cristani from Willow Healing Matters with another episode here for you with the beautiful Luc Jean-Louis. I think I got it right. And he was born and raised in New York, and he teaches people personal development. He is a life coach, blogger, author, speaker, singer, voice actor, and podcaster, and he loves helping and educating people in any way that he can. And if you want to find out more about his deep voice coaching, then you can reach out to him, but we're going to find out more about that now. So big welcome to the show, Luc.
Thank you so much for having me on as a guest, Catherine. It's an honor to be here.
Well, tell us a bit about this deep voice coaching. What does that actually mean, and how did this program evolve?
Sure. So I'm going to have to take you all the way back.
That's
It's
okay.
interesting because my parents immigrated to the United States from Haiti, and I was born and raised in New York City. I consider myself more American than anything else. And obviously, growing up, my parents had some high expectations for me. I went to school. In fact, I went to Catholic school from first grade all the way up to college because they loved private parochial schools more so than public education. They were willing to pay for much of it. So so they had high expectations, which I was able to live up to. I was working in the corporate world, and also just to add, I also got my MBA from Baruch College as well. So I was working in corporate, but then I didn't really feel fulfilled, and I knew I wanted to own my own business and start my own personal brand. I just didn't exactly know how to go about doing it. So let's just say I failed at a lot of things. So, yeah,
You failed
I
forward.
tried
You
a lot
failed
of.
forward.
Yes, absolutely. I failed forward and learned a lot from it. So one day I was in the office, and I had a colleague who was always sitting right next to me and always would hear me on the phone, and we would talk. And he said, you have a wonderful, excellent voice. It's very deep and melodious. He said, maybe you should do something with it. I've always gotten compliments about it. So one day I decided to start my own podcast, and it's called the Deep Voice Man Show, and it's had a lot of success, and it got me thinking that the key was building a personal brand, building an audience, and finding ways to monetize that audience. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. So, but to give you a bit of laughter about the stories of failure is I actually ever since college I was always looking for a way to actually start my own business. I actually joined an MLM called New Skin. And so, it's a multi-level marketing company. So I actually annoyed a ton of people with my MLM. So, but I was hunting. I was always looking, and but obviously, what I have now is an audience, a personal brand, and ways to monetize that audience. And I help people to do the same. And so that's sort of where my coaching niche is, so to speak.
Yeah, and I love that. Often I find when we find our place in life, it's because we're looking for something to make us feel more fulfilled, right? And you went along with the narrative to a point and then went, this isn't working for me. This isn't what I want. And that is when you step out, and it takes courage, but right, Luc, like it takes courage to put yourself, especially when it's your personal brand, because it's almost like the ego
Mhm,
takes a hit every time your personal brand takes a hit and you don't succeed and you fail
mhm.
forward. And I think the best thing my coach ever said to me was, see how many no's you can get. And I'm like, okay, All right, let's make it a game. How many no's can I get? And then when you do get a yes, you're like, oh, okay then. All right, let's move on. Like, great, come work with me. So I guess that journey in itself, and I love that you ended up in marketing as well, and then was just like, I'm sure you probably got some. Like, this is the thing, but whatever we do, even if it fails, you still learn from something and you still pick things up, and that's often why we get pulled and go down that adventure to see how it goes anyway.
Absolutely. You're so right. And it's the thing is, you mentioned failing forward, and it's so important to have that grit. And obviously, the with your ego, obviously, it's hard to not take things personally, particularly a no. But I actually coach people on that in terms of how to build their grit and how to develop a bulletproof ego that can handle no's, and what to do with that kind of pain of rejection and whatnot, and how to handle it. And so they can, because that is the key to success. If you can go for no, so to speak, see how many no's you get, make it a game. And that is so important. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it's, you've got this vision and it might always be perfectly clear how to get there. But in the end, you just want to keep pushing forward and keep moving towards it because it's that conviction, like you said, the grit that allows you to keep taking that next step and to get up the next day and to keep going and keep moving forward. But when it doesn't fulfill you and you're not excited about it, it's really hard to keep going because you're not on the right path and it doesn't fuel you because there's no reason you want to keep getting up and keep doing it.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
yeah, and
So,
these are things I
yeah.
talk about. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, and I was actually going to say to you, and how do you work on that with your clients? And then you were going to answer it anyway. So apologies for
Oh, sure.
jumping in there.
No worries. So what I do is what I just recently did is I self-published my first personal development book. It's actually
Well done.
called The Life Lessons from the Deep Voice Man. You'll probably see it on there backwards, I guess. And so in the book, because obviously I'm not able to share my wisdom with everyone one to one, I talk a lot about how to overcome, the fear of rejection, how to develop grit, and I talk extensively about goal attainment, how to go about achieving success. And a lot of the material in the book is based on obviously my life experience and what I've been taught from others. But I also I tell people all the time I've consumed and devoured tons of personal development material from YouTube videos, blogs, books, courses, coaches, and whatnot. So whenever I learn something, my brain is like a sponge; it absorbs it and never forgets. And so I take all the major points, I distill it into bite-sized bullet points. And so in the book, I mentioned that it's all killer, no filler, no fluff. It's very, very concise, and I try to make my point as few words as possible. It's jam-packed with knowledge and wisdom, and at least that's what I've been told, right? So it's like several, the lessons from several different hundred, personal development books in one. That's just in case if I can't coach someone one on one. But obviously, when I'm dealing with folks one on one, I try to listen because listening is so important. You want to get at
Hmm.
someone's why. You want to figure out what it is that motivates them. And obviously, I've done a few different coaching niches, and before it was more on personal goals. Now I've sort of honed in on helping folks to sort of escape the rat race, so to speak. And so it's a very rewarding for me. Yes.
Yeah, which is so beautiful because so often we get caught up again in that narrative of you need to work your 9 to 5 and that sort of thing. And, it doesn't suit everybody and it's not meant to suit everybody. And often the 9 to 5 is designed to keep you in a 9 to 5. You never get out of the 9 to 5 and you never get further
Mhm.
in life to where you want to be. And I guess it's that you never feeling fulfilled as well, right? Like that's always the tricky thing. It's like, and some people do feel fulfilled in the 9 to 5 because they found their niche. I know I was talking to someone the other day and she's like, oh no, because she has these beautiful vegan food blog and like the food is just looks amazing. You know, you can tell it's her passion, right? And I was like, oh, is this a business? And she's like, no, it's just my hobby. She's like, but I love my job. And I was like, whoa, okay, all right, all right. She's like, no, I love it. She's like, she's in marketing, funnily enough. And I was like,
Okay.
oh, all right, great. And she's like, but I just found this other hobby that I really love as well. Like she goes, I'm actually really blessed because I love my job and I love doing this as well. And I'm like, great, you know, that's awesome. You know, so and so we're not putting down 9 to 5s, but if you're not thriving in your 9 to 5, then maybe you shouldn't be in your 9 to 5.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And in your story, obviously, she said that she loved her job, which is amazing, and she also loved doing this on the side. I'm curious if maybe if she loves marketing, maybe she can combine marketing with, with her love of vegan cuisine. But obviously, it's her life. She could choose. If she loves her job, that's fine. Of course.
Exactly. And sometimes I'm like, do you? And it's funny because, you know, like you said, listening's so important. And it's like you listen for that undertone underneath because so often we teach ourselves this narrative to placate ourselves almost to allow us to keep doing something, even if it's not lighting us up. And it's often, I so prefer seeing people rather than just having a chat conversation or things like that because you get the feedback. Because when people are in their element and excited, they're like all lit up and they're all excited, you know. But when people are, you know, just punching the narrative through, it's like, are you? Are you? And a lot of people, because one of my things is I'll call people on it and it makes people very uncomfortable and triggers them. But at the same time, I'm like, that's me. I'm going to be triggering because I don't want the fluffy pretend conversations. I want the deep, real
Right.
conversations. What are your hopes and your dreams and how can we make them happen? I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah. That's amazing. I like how you mentioned how you love to trigger people, and because in one of the chapters of the book, I talk about how one has to, they may love compliments, but they have to also love critiques. You have to, accept feedback. Obviously, it's not easy for folks. The natural reaction for many is to get defensive, right, and to get all reactive and crazy. But you just have to, and this is a lesson I had to learn. Obviously, it's very important that it can't just all be the good that people tell you. They have to be accepting of the bad. You have to not be defensive, lower the defensive, humble yourself. Don't take it personally. This is meant to make you better. And I'm where I'm at today because people were willing to give me the proper feedback. And so I love that you mentioned that you say things that might be a little triggering to folks. People do need to hear it, and that's so important. Yeah.
I said to someone the other day, I said, what are you so afraid of? And they said, that is a loaded question. And they got so defensive. And I said,
Oh
well, you're
wow.
already doing this thing and putting yourself out there. So that's courageous in itself. So what else are you afraid of? Because sometimes, you know, when we name our fears, it helps us step more into our power because a fear is just a fear of the unknown. And when you actually name them and put them out there and, you know, often, you know, I would meditate about things. It's like, okay, what's the worst case scenario? And people are like, what? But that's what you need to do because your brain needs to play out all the angles. So I start in the worst case scenario and I feel it out, you know, feel the emotions, feel the anger, the sadness, whatever it might be. And then I flip the script and then I do the best case scenario. And it's like, wow, what is a euphoric, like amazing, perfect, you know, thing going to look like? And then once I've felt all that out, then there's like this kind of neutrality. And it's from that that you can make decisions because when you have that emotional charge around everything that you do, you're always going to be attached to whatever happens. So then if you do fail, it's like, oh, it's a reflection of me and I'm like, you know, a failure and da, 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 da. Whereas if you've already experienced both sides, it's like, oh, okay, well, how can we learn from that? And then how can we go back and try again? And, you know, especially if you have a really amazing idea or a passionate idea, sometimes it takes a few goes to get it out there. I feel like I'm giving myself a pep talk. Yeah, it takes a few goes to get it out there before you can actually, you know, it lands with the right people. You just got to keep, you know, restructuring your messaging, doing your research, finding out what lands, But it doesn't mean that what you've got is wrong. It just means you haven't found the right wording to connect with the people that you need to find just yet.
Absolutely. I love how you mentioned how you imagine the worst outcome, right? And then
Mm.
imagine the best outcome. I think Tony Robbins talks a lot about how pain and pleasure are the two motivating principles for people's actions, and so you have both of that, I think, nailed down, right? Where you look at the worst possible outcome, right? Which is the pain. Let's say if you don't do what you want to do, and what's the painful outcome, right? And then you look at what's the best outcome. So you have both of those kind of nailed down. So that is so important. So I love how you talk about that, the worst outcome and the best possible outcome, and how failure is something to learn from. That is so key. If you study history, it's you find this over and over again. I love this quote by Michael Jordan where he talked a lot about missing shots, and that's why he's so great, because he learned from the shots that he missed how to be a better player. And then the example from Thomas Edison, how he failed at a whole bunch of stuff to put into a light bulb.
A
So
thousand
these
patents he
kinds of
had.
stories
Yeah.
motivate me a lot. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And what you said too about pain driven, because if you're going after something from a pain driven response, it's never going to end well because you can't keep up in a pain driven response because it's always feeding the negative in your system. Whereas, and then you've got the pleasure response too, but then you got to find that happy medium in the middle that's,
sure.
keeping you going, but not, feeding that pain all the time because the pain will keep you in a victim mindset as well. So it's just like everyone's like, oh my goodness. But at the same time, you just learn what brings me joy and you follow those breadcrumbs. That's what I've found.
Okay.
What lights me up, what brings me joy. Let's keep following those breadcrumbs and see how that shapes into my life in terms of what I want to do with it and how to keep moving towards it.
Oh, absolutely. People should be drawn and centered by positivity, for sure. And it's so important that people live their life by what brings them joy. They say that the number one regret of dying folks is that they lived a life that others wanted, but not what they wanted. So, obviously, no one wants to get to the end and have that feeling. And I always tell people regret is the worst pain. But obviously, you don't want to think of that so much, like you mentioned, but you want to be driven by what brings you joy. So when you do that, you avoid all that, and so it's so important for folks to be positive, because thoughts are things that can be measured. They say, could interact with the uh, physical world,
Quantum
so to speak.
theory.
It sounds
Yeah.
very metaphysical, but I truly believe this, and there, and obviously the law of attraction, and what you think is what will manifest. So I'm totally with you on that. That one must be positive, uh, without a doubt.
Yeah, and even when the negative creeps in, it's not a sign again of failure. It just means it's feedback for your system, right? It's like, what isn't in alignment with me right now that is making me feel this way, that is making these thoughts come in. But I guess the more you get to know yourself, the more you know what the flaws are and the triggers are and the wounds, and when they'll kind of pop back up and you note that, like, oh, I'm reaching for the chocolate again because I want to avoid this conflict that's happening in my house right now. Then you can go, maybe I need to put the chocolate down and actually go address the conflict and have a conversation. And the more you get to know yourself and identify those triggers and everything, the better you can shape yourselves and become more resilient. And like you said at the start, create that grit so that you can keep going even when it feels like your head's trying to win out, or there's things happening around you, and you just keep taking the next step towards your goal. And it's that grit and conviction that allows you to get there.
Absolutely. They say grit is one of the top, maybe the top most determinants of success. And obviously, to keep going and not give up. Obviously, it comes naturally to some people, but other people have to develop it. And that's I'm in that camp where I had to build my grit, and not give up so easily. And so that's so key. And for me, it's all about, you don't stay attached to any outcome, but just keep plugging away and be consistent, and then whatever you're trying to achieve will sort of take care of itself. so to speak. That's sort of my philosophy about it. Yes.
When you were writing your book, did you find, I'm just curious, did you find that you had to grab onto that grit and just keep going?
It's funny. When I was writing the book, the book is technically a collection of short little essays that I wrote when I was well, I still am a member of TypeShare. It's like a writing community for folks where we all kind of encourage and motivate each other and exchange praise and called Signal and whatnot. So what happened was I joined this community because I wanted to become a writer and to put content out there to the social media world. And then so many people complimented me on my writing, and they said it helped make them think. And they said I was such a gifted writer, and so that encouragement was very helpful. And then over time, I had so many good atomic essays. I thought, I could turn this into a book. So I took all the essays, and categorized them, kind of modified them a little bit, and put them all in a book. And it's gotten a great response from folks who've read it, who've loved it. And so, that's I guess when it came to the book, it wasn't so much having to keep at it because what I did was I wrote an atomic essay a day for like I think a month and a half. So, and which is manageable, right? I didn't write it all in one
Sitting.
sitting. So
Yeah.
doing it that way really helped it to become sort of like a marvelous masterpiece that I'm so proud of.
I love this. I love that so much. And that reminder to people like you just did a bit each day because there's that saying we overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can do in a year. And it's funny because I wrote a novel, which is my next book I'm focusing on, but I wrote it doing 15 minutes a day. And people were like, what? And it's now a 90,000 word novel. But at the time, it didn't end up being feeling like that. And some days I'd want to write more because you're in flow. I'm sure it was like when you were doing your essays. If you're in flow, you might have done a bit longer, but at the same time, it's like you
Right.
put this little expectation on yourself. And then if you exceed it, then you exceed it. But if you don't, you've at least done the 15 minutes. And it's almost it's part of creating those good habits, right? And then, just going, this is all I have to commit to today. And you play the game. You play the game with yourself and with your brain.
Yes. Absolutely. Consistency is definitely the key. There's so many books on it. Obviously there's James Clear book called Atomic Habits, another book called Micro Habits, one called Slight Edge, another one called Compound Effect, but it's all the same thing. It's all about, I tell people success is just one long uninterrupted streak and where you just mark an X on the calendar each time it's done. And you just have a long streak going that never ends. And I tell people that when it comes to success, it's all a journey. It's not a race. It's not a destination. It's just a continuous, ongoing thing. So that's so important.
Yeah, and I feel too like people need to get really clear on what their definition of success is and not attach the material things to it as well. That's something people don't often talk about.
That is so true. I tell people all the time that you'll never be fully happy with anything that's external, because there's something called hedonic adaptation. Hopefully, I said that right. Where anytime you win something or earn something, it makes you only happy for a brief while, and then you turn back to to whatever you go back to wherever your mood was beforehand or where it is for the most part. But the thing people need to understand is that, and I think I learned this from reading the book Drive by Daniel Pink, is that we're actually happiest, we're actually at our most content when we're in the midst of working. And obviously has to be work you enjoy, but you talked about flow before, when you're in the zone, when you're in that flow state, that's actually when we're happiest and it's all about I guess when it comes down to it, a lot of motivation is intrinsic. It's not so much external, based on something you could win or some prize or accomplishment, but it's actually that intrinsic motivation where you're in the midst of it, so to speak.
Yeah, 100%, Luke. And especially when, you're in that flow, we're being so conditioned that happiness is this bliss, joyful experience. Whereas happy is actually, like you said, peace and content. And you're just like, yeah, I'm showing up and doing what I'm meant to be doing in this life right now. I'm in my zone, I'm in my flow, and it doesn't mean you're like that all the time, but that's your state most of the time. And that is kind of the feedback. It's like, yeah, actually, yeah, I am happy, and it's not like, yeah, you still need those dopamine hits, but at the same time, they're not all the time. And I think a lot of people think that that's what happiness is, where it's actually, like you said, that peace and being in the flow and being in that working zone that's filling your soul up and your cup up.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that when it comes to happiness, I was reading a book called Happy for No Reason, which talked a lot about this, where they've done studies and they found that even people who win the lottery, you'd think they would be excited and be at that level permanently, right? At the moment when they find out that they won, but it turns out a year later they still feel the same way that they did before they won the lottery. Obviously, what happens is, whatever problems they got solved that were solved with the money that they won, maybe they have new problems, and so obviously, when it comes to happiness and joy, it's more of a thing. It's more of a state that's internal. And it's not something that you can derive externally, so to speak. And so you're absolutely right on that.
Yeah, thank you. And it's funny, the lottery thing is such an interesting example, right? And even they've studied, and most of those people end up losing all their money because it's almost like they don't, because it came so easily, they often then have to face all their money programs and it all goes so easily. So, like you said, sometimes they've solved the initial problems with the money and then more problems pop up. So, it's really interesting, like how that works. But as we start to finish our time together, Luke, I often well, I ask, not often, I always ask my guests, if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
Sure. So, if I could heal or change, wow, I mean, there's so many things I would want for the world. Things like world peace, obviously a cure for all diseases, all that kind of stuff. But I guess if I were to choose one thing, um, I maybe for everyone in the world to have strong levels of empathy. Think empathy and compassion is so important, because if more people had empathy, we would have less violence, less evil, a whole lot less evil. And so that is so key and so important, is that for folks to have more empathy, because if there's more empathy, then that would bring about world peace. There would be more collaboration and cooperation among nations and regions and races and whatnot. So that would be the one way I would go about if I had a magic wand and I was a wizard and I could sort of heal the world. That I would want more empathy.
Wizard Luke with his wand is waving for more empathy. I love it. I love it. And it's something people can learn to do too, which is such a beautiful thing to remember. And if people want to connect with you, Luke, to come work with you, or they want to find your book, where can they go get all of that information?
Sure. So, if folks want to connect with me, they could go to my website. It's called clockfreedom.com. So they can go there. If they go to clockfreedom.com, they could actually, for a short period of time, they could get a free digital copy of my book, or an audiobook if they prefer. If they go to clockfreedom.com, they can sign up for that. It won't be available forever, that offer, but I'm putting it out there temporarily. And so they can go to clockfreedom.com. They can also check out my podcast. It's available on Spotify, Google, Apple. It's called The Deep Voice Man Show. They could check me out there. And of course, I would love to have you as a guest on The Deep Voice
Oh,
Man
thank
Show
you.
if it's possible.
I'd love that. I'd love that. This happens all the time. It's so great. This is about building community, right, with people. And people are like, this is why. But yes, I would love to be on your show on a side note. And if so they can get your book for a limited time for free from Clock Freedom. And after it's not for free, can they buy it so you can actually have some income from all this amazing work you've done as well?
Yes, if someone wants to pay for it to support me, they could always go to Amazon.com, look up my name, or just look up the title of the book, Life Lessons from the Deep Voiced Man. There's a Kindle version, a paperback, hardcover, an audio version, so they could check it out there. Yes.
Perfect. And I'll make sure to include all those details in the show notes, including your podcast, where to get your book, where to find you. And thank you so much for sharing this space with me, Luke, and reflecting on, what it takes to actually get to success.
Yes, you got it. It was a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be a guest. Yes.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.